Good morning, New York. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you're following this out there on the World Wide Web via SYS-CON TV, we have reached day 2 of 12th Cloud Expo. And it occurs to me, cloud computing, big data, software-defined networking, these 3 freight trains of enterprise IT, driving everything, driving M&As, driving, of course, business value. You don't have to like them, but you do have to understand them. So to help us understand one aspect of this, we have this morning VP of Cloud Systems and all good things at Rackspace. So let's give it up. And this has got to be a monumentous round of applause for Lisa Larson, VP at Rackspace. Ignite us, Lisa, please.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. That was an amazing introduction. I appreciate that. So this is a little bit of a weird setup here. So people that are way over there, can you wave to me just so I know that you can see me? All right, I can see you too. How about over there? Can you see me? All right, okay. So it's really great to be back at Cloud Expo. I did this last year, and today I'm going to talk about igniting innovation in your company. And so what we believe at Rackspace are that there are 2 things that are really accelerating innovation. And the first is the developer. The developer is the key to igniting innovation. And the second piece is hybrid cloud. So let's start by talking about the developer population. So developers rule. They're really the innovators in your company. If you're a tech company, they're the ones that are thinking up the next big thing. And really what you have to do is you have to be able to give them the tools to be able to go innovate and the tools to be able to go create new applications for you. They're your most important asset. So that's really the key. The key to everything, it's not infrastructure, it's all about the applications, it's all about the developer. So what you have to do is you've got to figure out how are you going to ignite innovation through your developer population. So let's think about it. Companies like Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, all invented by developers. They had a big idea. They thought of something new. They went out there and they started creating code. They started writing application. When was the last big time a big company went out there and created something brand new, something that was revolutionary, something that wasn't even thought about before? And it's really the developers that are driving that innovation. And companies of all sizes are realizing the need to free up developers and get creative. By the way, the timer hasn't started. So let's take a look at a recent Gartner survey and the changing priorities of IT. If you look at it, the first 4 top priorities of IT are all around the applications and the developers. So the first one is delivering applications faster. How do you get those applications out there? Time to market means money. So you need to be able to figure out how do you do that. Then the next ones are really all focused around the developer as well. How do you better align with the business? The business doesn't care about infrastructure. What they care about is the application. And so how do you get the business and the developers talking to get those applications out there as quickly as possible? The next 2 are all about developers too. So better use of Agile. How do you expand the use of Agile out there? And then finally, how do you increase innovation? And innovation is not necessarily about the infrastructure. Again, it's all about the applications, and the developer is squarely in the middle of figuring that out for you. So there's even a book out there. So there's a book called The New Kingmakers, and it's a developer. His name is Stephen O'Grady, and he states, developers are the most important constituency in technology. They have the power to make or break businesses, whether by their preferences, their passions, or their products. So think about that. You've really got to get that focus on the developer. How do you get them innovating for your company? So O'Grady has 4 major disruptions that are driving this shift. The first one is open source technologies. The second one is the cloud, the internet, of course. And finally is just seed stage funding. All these things have made it easier for a developer to go from a big idea or a little idea and be able to go from that idea to the concept to actually developing that code, writing that code, and launching that application. That's innovation. That's getting that out there very quickly. And they're putting the developers in the driver's seat. All types of organizations are realizing this shift, and that focus on the developer has to be there. So let's first look at the cloud service providers and how they're wooing the developer community. So hosting providers like Amazon Web Services, they've been doing this for a long time. They provide developer tools. It's easy to go to their websites, and you can find all the developer tools available to developers. And they've also got documentation. They're documenting everything so that a developer can easily find how to write code against Amazon Web Services. Microsoft is doing the same with Azure. And at Rackspace, we are too, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But it's not only just the cloud providers that are thinking about how to get developers involved in their products and services. It's other companies. Who would have thought it? ESPN. ESPN has content to share. It's rich content, and they want developers to pick that up and take that content, and they want to extend that content to other applications. And what they're doing is they're providing APIs. So they're giving APIs to developers so they can pull that content in and create new applications. So that's something you wouldn't even think about an ESPN doing something like that. So the New York Times is also another company that's extending out APIs. They have a developer network. They've got extensive APIs available to developers on things like bestsellers list, campaign finance data, and that's all being made available to developers. Again, they're putting that content out there, accessing it through APIs so that they can get that content out to a larger, broader network. And there are even companies out there that are creating APIs for other companies. Mashery says that APIs means new revenue channels for them. They're reducing costs and increasing brand awareness because they're creating APIs for other companies. Again, whole new other technology driven by developers. So what are the implications if you're in IT operations? So I just showed you a bunch of things that are available to developer communities. Developers are going out to the web. They're going and getting these tools. They're going and finding all these things, APIs. So if you're in IT operations, you got to start thinking about how do you take what you're doing today and serve that up to your developers. If you want developers to use standards, you want them to be able to go to your internal website and be able to get those standards. If there's standards on which cloud service providers you want them to use, you got to make that available to them. And you have to start thinking about how do you get those APIs out there and start thinking about DevOps and how you're getting your developers and your operators, your operations teams working together. So, one of the things that Rackspace is we're doing is we've been traditionally an infrastructure as a service provider, and we're feeling this shift too. So if you think about Rackspace and the evolution of Rackspace, we've always provided managed hosting services. But we're now targeting more of the developer population. We have cloud and the hybrid cloud, and I'll talk about that quite a bit. So we're focusing our focus on fanatical support. And if you've ever experienced fanatical support, you have rackers, that's what we call ourselves, and they're working with you and your company and helping you make sure that everything's up. And we're focused on provisioning, deploying infrastructure for our companies. But what we're doing is we're changing too. And so we're moving from that focus on deployments and provisioning to architecting applications with our customers. So our focus is also shifting over to the developer population. In addition to support, if you have services and content, just like all the other providers out there, developers might use, you need to be able to give that to the developer community. So no matter what kind of developer you are, they typically start with a search. And so you have to be able to make your services available through that search. And they are writing the apps based on that search that you provide. And so what they're looking for is content. They're looking for documentation. They're not looking for the marketing slicks. And with every combination of search terms, you can find what you're looking for Rackspace. And so, traditionally we've catered to an IT operations or a business unit, but we're also seeing the switch in that we're serving up content to the developer population. So if you go to www.rackspace.com, you can get to the information that you need here as well. What we're realizing is that across the board, whether you're a IT organization, you're an operator, you're a service provider, you're a vendor, the developers are influencing the decisions. They're influencing buying decisions on what code that they want to write. And you're going to start finding more code snippets available on Rackspace.com. So as developers continue developing, of course, they're looking to graduate. They want SDKs. They want APIs. They want documentation. And we have created developer.rackspace.com, and that has all the APIs and language-specific SDKs. We also have public GitHubs, and we point those to their repositories and other resources on the web. So we have a lot of public repos that are available, maintained by Rackers. We have fully supported SDKs in the Rackspace repo, and the various unsupported code in Racker Labs repo. That's all available on GitHub. We're operating in a mode of open first. Of course, we're one of the founders of OpenStack, and we are open sourcing our developer code as well. We're making it available to the community because we want people to collaborate with us on it. And we believe that this is really going to help us garner a lot of attention in the developer community. So speaking of community, that's also a huge part of developers. They love to be a part of a community. We have forums where the community can discuss products, ideas, solutions, requests. All those things are available through our Rackspace Open Cloud community. We interact with our customers in these forums just like any other provider out there. But not only do we do that, we also offer 24/7 support for our cloud. So if you've ever experienced fanatical support is available in our cloud. And our fanatical support is continuing to evolve. And what we're realizing is that developers don't always necessarily want to interact with a person. They may want to be able to just go to your website, get the information that they need. They might want to interact through a chat. But that's how developers like to get their information. We also have blogs. So if you're in the operations organization, this is a good place for you to think about DevOps. And how do you get these developers and the operators thinking together? Your IT operations organization. We're publishing frequently on the Rackspace DevOps blog. We post architecture news, developers care about. We post guidance, things like that, best practices and other activities and things that are going on out in the DevOps world. So what I've covered so far is really those basic tools that are available to developers, and those around core features of cloud. We've also been pursuing more advanced tools specifically for our developer audience. So we're enhancing our cloud with tools that we're bringing on. And we're looking at other API-driven capabilities that demonstrate the power of a cloud in the hands of the developer. So some of these capabilities we're building ourselves. Some of these capabilities we're partnering with other vendors out there through our tools marketplace. And others we're acquiring. So let's talk about some of those acquisitions. Mailgun is a great example of a developer tool that we've incorporated into Rackspace. So managing mail is hard, and so if you're a developer, the last thing that you want to be concerned with is how do you get email out to your user base. If there's no IT operations person around, it's really hard. So Mailgun is a company that we have acquired, and they give developers all the tools to send, receive, and track email via APIs. Developers can use Mailgun to sound outbound mail and to efficiently parse, process, and sort inbound mail. It also gives you the power of email analytics. So this is a really powerful tool for a developer that's thinking about how do I send email or how do I receive mail as part of my application. Another company that we have acquired is ObjectRocket. It's another awesome developer-centric tool. So ObjectRocket is a MongoDB database as a service in the cloud. This company started their business catering to Amazon customers. And those customers couldn't really get the experience that they wanted to see in EC2. And so ObjectRocket went out and created this tool. They built it in an Equinix facility, and then they connected it to the AWS DCs. After we've acquired them, now, of course, they're in the Rackspace DC, and they're available in our Chicago data center, and then they'll be available around the world. And so another product or a company that we have acquired is Exceptional Cloud Services. They've built and acquired a number of interesting capabilities for developers, including Exceptional and Airbrake. And really what they're doing is providing error tracking and reporting in a service called Redis to Go. Redis is a service capability that fits nicely in context with ObjectRocket. Many web developers that we're seeing are using Redis plus Mongo, quite similarly to how they used to do Memcache and MySQL. But all these tools are just part of the innovation story. These are tools that are available to developers. And the other part of innovation is something that we've learned from our customers. And that hybrid cloud gives developers the most power. And so think about it. If you were a startup company and you were launching an application, you probably went to public cloud because you didn't know what the demand for that application was going to be. And so you went out there and you put it out into the public cloud. But as that application grows, or as the demand for that application grows, you're adding more and more public cloud services. You're adding more capacity to this application. And over time, what we're seeing with our customers is that public cloud isn't always the best fit. So hybrid cloud really goes beyond public cloud. And what we have is our hybrid cloud is composed of many different parts here. You have public cloud, private cloud, and our traditional managed hosting, dedicated hosting, which is more of a bare metal server. And what we're doing is we're connecting all of those things together in a true hybrid cloud fashion through Rack Connect. So a user or a customer can actually use all those pieces of our product portfolio seamlessly. They can move the application workloads around. They can move it from public cloud. Maybe that doesn't make sense anymore, and you need to be able to have a base level of capacity, and you might want to move that to private cloud. Or maybe you have a legacy application portfolio, and you're thinking about how do I bring that legacy application to a service provider like Rackspace. And what we can do is we can help customers look at those legacy application portfolio and to start to decompose those applications. And you can take that application, you may have a database that you want to keep on dedicated servers, and you may have images that you serve up to a user population. I like to browse shoes, so when I go out and I look on the web, I'm looking at lots of images of shoes. As you can see, I'm a shoe person. So I go out and I browse images of shoes, and that's probably sitting on a public cloud somewhere. But when I get ready to go purchase a pair of shoes, I want to make sure that my transaction is secure. And so at Rackspace, that's sitting on a dedicated server. And it's using Rack Connect to serve up from the public cloud over to our dedicated server. And we also have customers that don't want to have that multi-tenant. They want to be able to have their own private cloud, and we do that through our private cloud hosting service as well. So why is hybrid cloud so powerful? Why is this important to think about as your applications changes over time? So don't just take our word for it. Take a look at what the analysts are saying. We're not the only ones that think this way. So Network World, 2013 is the year of the hybrid cloud. Gartner says, savvy IT organizations are devising a hybrid IT strategy that is built on internal and external clouds. Forrester says, 3/4 of firms are using infrastructure as a service today, and plan to use a hybrid cloud strategy in the future. And Enterprise Management Associate says, I'm convinced 2013 is going to be the year of the hybrid cloud infrastructure. So what companies, enterprises are realizing is that public cloud isn't going to fit all their applications. Even with all this buzz out there, there's still parts of the industry that believe you don't need a hybrid cloud. They believe that everything can run on the public cloud. And we really believe that there are a couple of myths. There are 3 main myths this way of thinking. And if you're a startup again, this might not matter. It might not matter that public cloud may not be the long-term solution for you. But as you grow your business and your application grows, the costs that are associated with public cloud may exceed what you're looking for. So there are 3 main myths of public cloud. The first one is that all apps run best in the public cloud. The second one is always cheaper on public cloud. And the third one is that everything can be automated in a public cloud. So who needs support? You don't need support because you're just going to automate everything. So let's take a look at the first myth here, that all apps run best on the public cloud. And the answer here is that it really depends on what the application does. And you really have to understand that application and make sure that public cloud is the right fit. So if you need security, performance, reliability, you may need a dedicated server. You may need to take parts of that application and put it on a dedicated infrastructure. If you want to be able to combine the flexibility of public cloud, but you want that in your own data center, then you're going to look at private cloud. And the second myth is about cloud, or public cloud is cheaper. And so think about this in the rent, lease, or buy model. Over time, as your application grows, there's going to be a base level infrastructure that's constantly on, right? It's no longer utility, it's always on. And so as your application grows, you may want to start thinking about parts of that application residing in a private cloud, and then other parts of that sitting in a public cloud. And there you're looking at the best capacity model. You're really looking at a variable capacity model with the public cloud and a fixed capacity model with that private cloud solution. And at some point, the cost of pure public cloud really starts to exceed what you could get, even back to a dedicated server infrastructure. So you really have to think about those cloud economics over time for that application. You really have to understand what is the demand for that application. So it's important to get analytics and monitoring and things like that on that application so you can see how those costs change over time. So really, lowest total cost really depends on your needs. It really depends on that application. So here's another way of looking at it. If in the traditional spaces, you were sitting as an IT operator, you had an on-premise data center, and you probably started looking at, maybe you were using a service provider like Rackspace, and you were doing some sort of dedicated hosting, and that's our traditional managed hosting. And maybe you have a little bit of public cloud as well. So private cloud is filling a gap in the three primary pillars of IT service delivery, and either on-prem or hosted capacity. If you have it, maybe you want to have an on-prem private cloud because you can't take your data outside of your data center. You want to be able to keep that inside, but you want the capabilities of a cloud service. And so therefore, you may want to decide to do private cloud. Hosted private cloud is you're leveraging the service provider capabilities, but you don't want to have that multi-tenant capability. You want to be able to isolate your private cloud from everybody else, and that's a hosted private cloud solution. So if you think about it, you've got all these different aspects, and there are trade-offs of all of those. As you're thinking about, where does my application go? I really need to understand this application. I need to understand the control that I need to have on that. How flexible, how elastic does that need? What is my security requirements for that? If I look at that application over time, what do the expenses do? Should I move from a CapEx model, which is the on-premise type of solution? Do I move to an OpEx model, where I take that more to a service provider? The interesting thing is, over time, what we're seeing is that customers may decide to, going back to the developers, they may decide that they want to go try something. They want to innovate fast. And so they'll go with a public cloud model. And as that demand for that application changes over time, then they may take that workload and move it to a private cloud solution. And so this gives the flexibility of taking an application and moving that workload wherever it fits best. And that's the ultimate flexibility. So how do you meet all these needs? So combining all these choices, you're looking at security, scalability, agility, and availability. You're looking at performance and cost, but also all these different pieces, and you're looking at what is the best fit for my application. And that is hybrid cloud, and that's what we believe is hybrid cloud is going to be the solution for the future. So let's take a look at an example. Say you're an IT operations person, you're the director of IT, and your marketing team comes to you and says, hey, you know what? We're going to launch this new TV show, and it's called The Real Executives of Hollywood. They say, man, this is going to be a surefire hit. And Mr. IT operations guy, we need you to help us. We need you to be able to have technology available so that we can launch this product, this TV show. It's not only just going to be a TV show, though. We're going to have an application, and it's going to be available. It's going to be a community, and we're going to have an e-commerce retail site. Beyond that, we're going to have a gaming platform with an online community. We want you to connect that for us. But there's going to be a mobile application as well. And don't forget, there's going to be a tablet application too. So thinking about all these different components, you're going to launch this new TV show, and you have to have all these technologies connected. So they need to be able to work seamlessly together, right? So you may have a user, somebody that wants to go see this TV show. They log onto the website. They're following the website. They're part of the community. They go to their mobile application. They go to their tablet. And this launch is expecting to drive huge traffic, spikes in traffic, and you have to be ready for it in 2 weeks because, oh, by the way, the marketing team just told you about this, and this show is launching in 2 weeks. So I don't know if that ever happens to any of you, where your marketing team comes to you and says, hey, by the way, we want you to launch this application in conjunction with this new product release. So, we see this all the time, whether it's a new show or it's a game launch or it's a Super Bowl commercial ad that's driving traffic to a special website. Or maybe it's a major gadget blog that's covering an Apple event with a live blog. Maybe it's a company that's getting a lot of publicity because of a spot on, say, Shark Tank. And they have to handle a huge spike in demand. All these things are focused on security, content. You've got security, you've got content and data you have to protect. You've got to be able to scale up rapidly all these resources. You've got to be ready for the next big reveal or on a reality show or a big spike in traffic. You've got to have that agility. You may need to adjust very quickly, spinning up new resources, maybe moving workloads around. And availability, your site has to be up in conjunction with this new launch. You've got games, you've got things that are absolutely have to be on, or else that user community is going to turn away and they may not come back. So, what I meant before is that this whole concept of hybrid cloud and capacity planning is you really got to keep an eye on that application over time, because the economics may start working out better that you have a base level of capacity, which is sitting on a hosted private cloud solution. And then you may want to be able to spike that traffic and have utility building on pieces that move up and down, that variable demand. So you've got a fixed capacity and a variable capacity, and you're doing this in a hybrid cloud model. So hybrid is working really well in the open cloud. Open enables hybrid. And by open, of course, we mean OpenStack. Rackspace is one of the founders, and we founded that 3 years ago. And OpenStack has really since become one of the standards for open source cloud software. OpenStack is built on and used by who's who's of list of tech companies. At our last OpenStack Summit up in Portland, several companies and organizations reported successful use of OpenStack. Companies like Comcast, Bloomberg, Best Buy, PayPal, CERN, HubSpot, all of these companies are using OpenStack very successfully. So Comcast is one of those that got up on stage and talked about how they're using OpenStack. They demoed their new X1 experience that runs on OpenStack and delivers features such as faster search, an on-screen sports application, and an iPhone remote app. So hybrid cloud also, if you're back to the IT operations organization, because I don't want to forget them, hybrid cloud gives you guardrails. It provides guardrails with the IT operations team and the developer teams. From the IT operations front, you have to embrace this agile developer community. You've got to be able to provide services to the developer community. They have to be flexible. They have to change on a dime. If you've got that real Hollywood executives being launched, you've got to be able to move workloads around and be able to provide services quick to developers. Continuous integration, continuous deployment. You've got to be ready for that. For the developer, you have a responsibility also to the company. You have a responsibility for getting efficient utilization of that infrastructure. And so hybrid cloud really gives you those guardrails to look at security, reliability, agility, flexibility. And as you start thinking about merging the operations of the developer community and the operations team, that whole concept of DevOps comes into play. And getting those developers and operations teams working together is also extremely important. So companies that are turning to these developers on loose on the hybrid cloud are seeing great results. Let's take a look at some use cases. So Vivo is a great example. They're a company that hosts with Rackspace. And so their situation was they're a web-based music video and entertainment service. They have 68 million visitors in a month and 3 billion video streams in a month. So their challenge was storage and transfer of large media files. So what their solution was is they used a hybrid cloud solution. They have dedicated hosting and public cloud. So they've got that connected through Rack Connect, and it's managing large media files. They have a dedicated environment. They have custom servers that are set up. They have managed storage, and they have scalable compute in the cloud for CPU-intensive transcoding. So that through that media file is that they're using the public cloud to be able to transcode that and be able to spin down resources when they don't need it. Here's another great example is HubSpot. And so for this, I have a quick video that helps explain how the hybrid cloud has changed the way that they operate.
HubSpot, we like to think, is the only marketing software that you'll ever need. We have over 8,500 customers. We focus from SMB through the enterprise, and we do everything from content generation, capture, social media, lead nurturing, email marketing, all the way to marketing analytics. We think we make marketing that people love. So we've been a Rackspace customer since 2007. Early on, we decided we did not want to be in the colo business or the racking hardware business, so we didn't have the proverbial server under a desk. We had a server in Texas. Our mantra is we ship to production about 75 times a day, about 2,000 times a week for QA. We not only deal with continuous build and continuous deploy, we deal with continuous provision.
That gets extremely demanding on a team like ours, where we have to make sure that the infrastructure is ready and able to take those updates. At any point in time, our cloud needs to support all those types of products. That can range from Hadoop all the way to MySQL, to a Django stack, you name it.
For us, a product idea might be a PM who has some coding capabilities who wants to put out a prototype and actually get internal feedback or get a select customer group of feedback. And the last thing we ever want to do is tell them they have to wait for IT or they have to wait for us to get a server. So from idea to production could be 30 minutes. The combination of that burstability plus the control, visibility, and QoS that we can get is really why we chose to go with OpenStack. So at the OpenStack Summit, we were able to share some of the results that HubSpot has seen. One thing that we announced today is that HubSpot has built what we believe to be a real hybrid or even hybrid cloud solution, which takes the best of the public cloud, regardless of the vendor, private cloud, again, regardless of the vendor, and actually bare metal hardware. What that really gives us is the raw power of that bare metal, plus all of the control, flexibility, and VM provisioning that an OpenStack powered cloud can provide. So one of our biggest drivers of this hybrid cloud was to be able to put bare metal servers physically right next to our virtualized OpenStack servers, all bound on a 10 gig backbone. So what that means is we can take these massive multi-billion data set payloads and process them right alongside our online web app streaming applications. We see a huge benefit in those three clouds, public, private, and bare metal, all being within the same physical area. Taking the exact same payloads that we have in the public cloud, we're able to process those same payloads at 4 times or 4x the throughput that we had seen in the public cloud. And that was pretty exciting.
Rackspace's role has been great. It's great to see that they embrace open source so much. The fact that Rackspace Cloud is running on OpenStack is fantastic. And the fact that we can build hybrid clouds that are based upon a single model is even better for all of us.
All right, so the situation here is that HubSpot has 8,000 customers. They're in 56 countries. They are doing continuous deployment and provisioning, and they have 75 updates per day. So the time that it takes from going from an idea, a concept, to production is less than 20 minutes. And at first, they ran only in the public cloud. But their challenge, what they were looking to solve for, is they wanted more control. They wanted more control and customization. They wanted more reliability. They wanted to get to 99.99% availability. They wanted to be able to have image parity and image portability, and they wanted to be able to determine their own destiny. So again, they had a hosted private cloud solution with dedicated hosting, and they pulled that all together with Rackspace using Rack Connect. So they started on OpenStack back in 2011, and they've grown that OpenStack, and now they are all in on the fulsome release. So in January 2013, they've got 166 nodes. At the OpenStack Summit in Portland, they reported how their new hybrid cloud performed compared to public cloud. And as you saw in the video, the results were 4x faster in efficiency, and they also gained image parity. So why does open matter? HubSpot is a great story and a great example of why open matters. 5 years ago, if you think about it, there was no one that thought a startup mobile OS called Android could make much of a difference against Apple. Just a few years ago, no one thought a startup cloud OS called OpenStack could make much of a difference against Amazon Web Services. But just as Android has sparked mobile device innovation, OpenStack is sparking cloud innovation. Open innovates faster, lowers cost, and gives choice. So, I've got a bank vault here. If you think about the IT of old, the IT operations organization, the folks that ran the data center had access to all the infrastructure. And if you were a developer, getting access to that infrastructure was really hard. You had to go through a business case. You had to go through forecasting. How much demand were you going to expect for that application? And the beauty of the cloud and the hybrid cloud is that you can go experiment. You can go try things. You don't have to have a business case. You don't have to have all that capacity planning. It's just go spin it up in the cloud. And open is a better model for that. So some key takeaways. Developers rule. And they really are the focus, and the focus on innovation. Hybrid cloud gives more developers the most power and the freedom. And developers with power drive innovation. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lisa. As always, what was it Picasso said? He didn't like the idea of computers because they only give you answers. So we're going to switch to the other side of that, which is questions. And I want to see who is going to ask Lisa the first question about her hybrid cloud pitch and about openness. And I'm seeing a hand at last. We're off to the races. Thank you, sir.
Have you seen any deployment or any requirement for having cloud, public cloud as a DR for a private cloud environment?
Yes, I'm sure, absolutely. I'm sure that you're taking files. Maybe you're taking files and you want to be able to store those as a disaster recovery, and you're putting it on our public cloud solution. Are you saying like private cloud in your own data center to our public cloud? It's probably going to be more of a replication type of story where you're using, if it's a traditional application, you're probably using something like SRM to be able to replicate.
Okay, thanks.
The question I have is, you indicated the public, the private, and the managed dedicated environment. Do you find this always being put in third-party location, or what is the balance between the managed environment and the customer's private data center that they manage themselves?
Yeah, so I think the answer there is really thinking about what do you want to do as an IT organization. So do you want to continue to manage assets in your own data center, or do you want to start getting out of the business of the data center operations and move to a service provider where somebody like Rackspace can manage all that infrastructure for you, and you as the IT organization focus on innovation and working with the business. So going back to that Gartner slide, one of the key things this year is really focusing on how do I get back to the business of IT that supports the business, not running a data center. And so, the scenario there of private cloud on-prem is you're still managing all those assets. Maybe it's data that you don't want to take outside of your data center. But kind of thinking of it in a managed hosting model is how do you start moving things out of your data center? How do you get to a service provider type of model?
Thank you.
That made sense? Over here, that was the furthest question away so far. So let's come far away here. Oh, Lisa. Well, you know what we do then at this point is we give the most incredible second thunderous round of applause to Lisa Larson and thank her for igniting us.